Well, hey everybody, welcome back to From the Bookshelf, my book review show here on the My Seminary Life YouTube channel. If you haven't yet already, please consider subscribing to the channel. We got some big changes coming pretty soon here. This is going to be my one-stop shop for all the different video video projects that I have going. So got some big things in the works. So please, if you haven't yet already, subscribe and enable notifications, like this video, and go down into the comment section and let me know what your favorite tree is, because today I want to talk about a book about trees, a book I read that's all about trees, or at least that's what the author kept saying it is about. I speak, of course, of Andrew Peterson's The God of the Garden. It's a book about trees. First off, it is very clearly about trees and English footpaths. Those are like two of Andrew Peterson's, who, by the way, Christian singer-songwriter, author of the Wingfeather Saga. If you're not familiar with Andrew Peterson by name, he is, like I said, musician, author. Big into nature. He loves nature. He loves trees. He loves English footpaths. And if I was taking notes, I could probably sit here and tell you all about all the different the facts I learned about trees in this book that I read. But the lessons that really stood out to me as I was reading The God of the Garden, cannot recommend it enough. I loved this book so much. There were many things, though this book is about trees, and I will say that as many times as Andrew Peterson said it in his own book. The book itself, it's not like just writing about trees every chapter. Here's a chapter about this tree. Here's a chapter about that tree. There is a tree that he talks about in like every chapter of the book, but the book itself is a little bit more of a Surprised by Joy, C.S. Lewis spiritual autobiography versus just a factual book about trees. Andrew Peterson tells his spiritual journey through the lens of trees and nature, broadly speaking. And this was the big lesson that I took away from this book of what are the ways that we make sense of our story. Andrew Peterson goes through his spiritual journey, unpacking some traumas that he had from his childhood through one of his big, this big dark night of the soul that he had while he was on tour later on in life. The pandemic comes up during the book as well. And he uses trees, he uses nature, he uses footpaths to unpack his spiritual journey. And that was one thing that really stood out to me as I was reading and reflecting this book of what are the ways that we make sense of our own life story? What are the ways that we sit back and see through the lens of other things to make sense of our own story? I know for me, like, pop culture seems to be the way that happens a lot. I go through, different movies, different comic books, and just music is another one that just kind of helps me to make sense of my life story. I've thought about before. I started this project once and I put it aside. I should do it again, of putting together a public playlist that the songs kind of dictate like how I perceive the story arc of my life. It's going to be very heavy and very dark at times, but this kind of like, how do we process our story? How do we make sense of our own life story, our own spiritual journeys? Andrew Peterson goes the route of trees, and if you want to go that route as well, more power to you. Like I said, for me, I'm a little bit more like music, movies. Those are the kind of the things that help me make sense of how my story, how my spiritual journey has unfolded over the past few years. Another big lesson that stood out to me from the reading of this book is the importance of nature, of the importance of the natural created world. Again, when you're reading a book about trees, as he says, you can't help but you're either going to fall in love with trees or just be just like so like this is so distracting and so off put by it that you're not really into the tree part. But I don't see how you can go through this book without, especially for me, it wasn't so much the trees, but the turn when he started talking more about English footpaths and, just being able to explore and experience the created world around us, that there was a change in my thinking and in my theology when it comes to how we relate to the natural world. There is beauty in nature, and we need to treasure that. He talks a lot about how in England, because of how property works over there, you can just wander these footpaths and explore all this beautiful, beautiful land that here in the United States, it's like, well, this is private property, so you can only go so far. Right? You can only experience so much. And to realize like how much we are depriving ourselves of through that way. It's not so much a political or social, it's a little bit of a social commentary, I will say that. But it's just interesting to think about how the way our systems work here, we are preventing ourselves from experiencing something that could draw us to worship, that could draw us to an emotional response, inspire us to create because of the rules we have. He also talks about how our development of the land into these little suburban areas where they all have a Target, a Chipotle, and a Chick-fil-A, like these kind of like development stuff really takes away not just from the natural beauty, which is important. We're disregarding what is created for convenience, but he also talks a little bit about how just like these suburban areas that continue to develop are just like unoriginal. They're the same thing over and over again. Maybe the roads are a little bit different. Maybe the buildings are put in slightly different places, but there's just like there is a convenience and an orderliness that takes away from the beauty and mystery that is the wild. The trees just grown in all these different, wild ways. We're stripping away what is wild and therefore uncomfortable to replace it with the orderly, going to just be, cookie cutter, cut and paste kind of development, and how that is sad. And there's like he doesn't use this word, but for lack of a better word, there's like a domestication there of our souls. We're like domesticating ourselves to get to be used to just like the convenience and the routine versus nature that is, it's wild, it's uncontrolled, but not always in a bad way. It's natural. And so the big takeaway from this book is to like trees. You should read books about trees. That's it. That is the whole video. That is the point of the book. And the point of this video is that you should read a book about trees. And maybe in the process, take a step back and reflect on how do you make sense of your own story? And how do you experience nature? What is your area like? Can you experience nature? Do you need to go far away in order to experience like being in actual nature? Do you have the opportunity to, give back and play a role in the further development of nature and to preserve, the beauty of our created world? Some thoughts for you on this February morning as I record this video. Thank you for watching. Kind of a short one, but this is something I've been wanting to talk about for a while. So thank you for indulging me and Andrew Peterson as we talk about how great trees are. And go check out the book. I'll put a link to it in the description of the video, so that way you can go check it out for yourself. Thank you for watching. We'll see you soon with another book review.